Okay, we are starting the webinar, and I want to welcome you to this afternoon's virtual homecoming gathering. We would usually have a opening in the gallery, and that is what we'd love to have, is to have all of you gathered together in the gallery, and then we get to walk around and chat with you. And what we're doing this afternoon is trying to sort of replicate some of that. So we're going to give you some sort of short conversations with several people, with current faculty and with the person who keeps us going in the department, Veronica Berkey, and a couple of retired faculty, and just show you a few images and let you see a video from one of the seniors that graduated last year. So we will start this afternoon just with introductions. And so I am Merrill Crabell, and I am the chair of the art department, and I've been here, I think this is my 19th year, but I didn't do the math to see it was 19 or 20.
I'll jump in next. So I'm Randy Horst, and I think I'm starting my 12th year here now. And I teach in the two-dimensional things and some art history and some of the graphic design and a smattering of other things too.
And I'm John Mishler. I teach sculpture part-time, and I'm a director of the art gallery, Hershberger Art Gallery, which is closed this fall because of the COVID-19.
Yeah, I'm Marvin Bartell. I'm probably retired about as long as Merrill has been here working as in the faculty. And so I won't give you much more now. Maybe I'll have a few minutes later to talk about things.
And I'm John Blosser, and I taught drawing and painting and design and so forth before Randy came.
And I'm Veronica Berkey. I'm the administrative assistant for art, but also for social work and help with the administrative functions of the art gallery as well.
And we wish we could know who all is out there now. We know that some of you have joined via Zoom, and we know that some of you are in the live stream, but we do want to welcome you to this event. The people who make everything worthwhile for us are, of course, the students. And so I wanted to let you have a little bit of a glimpse into the experience from one of our graduating seniors last spring, and this is Dylan Hershey. And she sent a video that just gives sort of an update talking about her experience last spring and what's happening for her now. So you'll get to see me try and manage the technology, and I am going to share my screen.
This past spring semester was kind of a weird one, to say the least.
All right, let me back it up because I want her to be.
Hi, I'm Dylan Hershey. I am a 2020 graduate, and I majored in graphic design and sociology. This past spring semester was kind of a weird one, to say the least. We were, both me and Javier were lucky enough to still be able to put our exhibit on throughout the midst of the chaos that the pandemic kind of caused. Something that has kind of been resonating with me in the last few years is the concept of home and belonging. This was kind of highlighted during my SST time, which was the spring of 2019. And so in the fall of 2019, when I got back to campus, things felt the same, but also very different because I was abroad, and it kind of challenged my ideas of what I thought belonging and home meant. So I decided then for my senior project to interview different people who either lived abroad, studied abroad, or are international students on campus, and then ask them about their concept of home and belonging and how that influenced or changed their ideas from when they were younger, or what they think about it now. So I decided to pull out a quote from these interviews that kind of resonated with what their theme was for the 45-minute interview. And then I asked them to contribute 3 to 4 pictures that either made them feel at home, makes them think of home, makes them feel like they belong, certain objects, food, people, places, things like that. And so I kept that idea the same throughout all the posters, but obviously then all the pictures changed, and then and the quotes changed as well. So that was something that I did in the spring, right before the exhibit actually went up. So then when campus closed down, it closed down the exact same day that, or the day before we were able to put our exhibit up. So I moved in with one of my friends who lived in Goshen, and stayed there until I finished out the spring term. And then I moved back home with my parents for May term in Philadelphia. And that's where I'm currently at right now. I am still looking for a job. I've been picking up a few small unrelated jobs from my major, just to kind of make sure I have some type of income. I'm currently nannying and kind of being a teacher's assistant for my neighbors' kids who are 7 and 9. So I just have to sit with them and make sure they actually pay attention to the teacher who is talking on Zoom for 6 hours. And moving forward, I'm looking for some type of job, graphic design related. Doesn't have to be sociology related in any way. So that's where I'm at right now. And if anyone has any type of job, I'd be interested in hearing about it. Thanks for your time.
Okay, now, thank you, Dylan. Really appreciate that. Now I'm gonna swap things around here again. Okay. What I have is a couple of snapshots of what's happening in the art department and what's happening over in the gallery, and they really are just snapshots. It's taken with the phone yesterday, and then I have some images that the juniors who are now seniors, who would usually go through an advancement process last spring, have taken this fall now as part of their process of moving into their senior year and getting ready for their senior show. And again, these are pictures taken on their phones. And so all of this is sort of snapshots from a campus where everybody is actually quite busy, trying to manage a lot at the same time, but still doing what I think is a pretty good job. So I'm gonna move through here. So you just heard Dylan talking about the senior show that she and Javier put together, and this is a snapshot from the gallery now. Students are able to go into that if they ask for access to it, and we can take groups over there. But the building's not open to the public generally. They're trying to limit the exposure on campus. So this gallery doesn't get a lot of attention, but it's still awfully nice to have their work here. And we're also very glad that they had the opportunity to put the work up and go through that part of the process. Very sorry that they could not have all their friends and family gather. This is outside of the music center. And on campus, I haven't counted them. Maybe some of you guys know, but there are at least 4, maybe 5 tents that are outdoor spaces. So in this time when our actually quite nice fall has been happening, people can gather in a relatively safe space. And we have had some beautiful days. This is just yesterday afternoon. It's gotten a little cooler, but it's been a very warm fall. There's another one of the tents near the broken shield. And the entrance to our building. One of the curious things to me is that maple tree that's on the upper left-hand corner. I always remembered it as a brilliant red in the fall, but the last couple of years it's been green, yellow, green. And then as you get closer, wearing masks is required everywhere on campus and especially inside, of course. And Randy may talk about this, but the painting class has been moved into 07, if you remember room numbers. Everything's stretched out 6 feet apart. Powder's wheels are stretched out 6 feet apart. We have the advanced class is meeting this fall. The beginning class was canceled because of the difficulty in working with that number of people. But we are hoping to run a beginning class a little smaller in the spring. And drawing class has been split to use both halves of the room because the number of students makes it impossible to have students far enough apart in one half. And the computers upstairs, every other computer does not have a keyboard, so students have to stay 6 feet apart. All of that, I mean, the fall has been really intense in terms of just being busy. I mean, we're trying to manage a whole lot of stuff at the same time. But all that being said, it's still working and students are interested and active, and folks who are really exciting to us at this point, of course, are the juniors who are moving into their senior year. And so these are snapshots that they took of their work so we could do that advancement process via Zoom. And this is Heather Gable. And this is a piece that's just outside of the art building right now. You can probably see that location. And this is Naomi Tolmachoff and Nathan Pauls. And this is Megna Das. And this is Diana Campos and Jacob Shepard and Esmeralda Bucio. So, of course, kind of beginning and ending this little section of the presentation with students, which makes total sense to me. Okay, I think back to you, Randy. You're muted.
Welcome, everyone. You can hear me now, right? Let me just add to some of the comments that Meryl said about teaching. It is one of the first questions people tend to ask us is how's it teaching in COVID? In addition to some of the spacing issues that Meryl was talking about before, some of the other things that we deal with are some classes go only online, particularly if they're software-based or computer-based. That's a little bit easier. Some classes have arrangements now where only half the class shows up for a given class period, where the other students are working outside of class, and then they flip-flop the other day or days of the week. And so again, it sort of changes what's happening in your normal kind of class situation. For me, like in terms of, you saw the drawing room there, sometimes I can have everyone in class at once, even though I'm spreading them in a much larger area. But when it comes to critiques, I might break them in half again, so I have smaller groups of people meeting together. So it's an adaptation process, and it's going okay. It wouldn't be what we choose first, but we're making it work. Some of the other things that I want to talk about just in terms of where the department is these days. We've seen some growth in the graphic design program in the last several years. We're probably up about 150% of where we were about 4 years ago. We think that's a pretty positive move. We're happy with that sort of renewed interest and what it brings to the program. In terms of more bodies, but also graphic design is one of those programs where there's a lot of overlap with communications and with the business department too. And so that sort of interconnectedness and collaboration on campus is also something that we think is a strength of Goshen College in general, but we also think it's advantageous for us as a department to have those sort of ongoing connections. Along that same line, Jordan Kaufman, who is, I believe, a 2011 grad, has come on board as an adjunct in teaching some of our graphic design classes this year. He's helping to run a business in graphic design and communications in Goshen this year. Most recently, he was teaching at University of Notre Dame in their graphic design program. So he's stopped doing that last spring, so we're thrilled to have him as part of our program right now. He brings a wealth of experience, an MFA actually in graphic design, and we're super pleased with sort of the energy and sort of that professionalizing experience and his energy, his excitement for that profession. And we're excited about what that's going to do and help our growing program going forward. So I think that's it for me. John, do you want to talk a little bit about?
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can hear me. Okay, yes, okay, good. Well, I'm teaching advanced sculpture this fall, and I am doing it face-to-face, so I have a small class. So we're wearing masks, or I often wear a face shield when I talk to the students, and we're working at social distancing too. I haven't figured out how to teach sculpture online because many of my students want to weld, and I can't supply a welder to everyone. So that's what's happening with that. This summer, I was involved with a Hickory Scholars program. It's Maple Scholars and Hickory Scholars, where students do research and present every other week on it. And Heather Gable was a student I worked with. She's a double major, art and sustainability through Mara Lee. And John, the other John Mishler at Mara Lee, he spells his name with a C, where I don't. We were kind of co-sponsored it. And she made a sculpture, welded sculpture for Goshen College campus. The first student work that was shown was her sculpture on campus. And then she also made a sculpture for Mara Lee. They're very similar, but the idea was to bring the two campuses closer together. Mara Lee often feels not a part of the Goshen College campus, so having a sculpture both places helps with that. And her theme was kind of native grasses. And besides teaching part-time, I'm also very involved in studio commissions because I work by myself, which many of you maybe are able to do now. I was able to continue to work through the spring, summer, and now. This spring, I installed a commissioned sculpture for the city of Warsaw, Indiana. It was in memory of a lady architect that had died in a car wreck. And the sculpture's installed right next to the city hall, which she did a lot of work on. And you can see a picture of that sculpture on my Facebook page. And it was a kinetic sculpture, like most of mine are now. I'm almost done with a kinetic sculpture for Sterling Group, real estate company in Mishawaka. It's going to go in front of their building. This one is made out of stainless steel, which is much harder to work with, but it's just about done. And then I am also working on a commission piece for the Pumpkin Vine Nature Bike Trail to celebrate the retirement of John Yoder, who started the bike trail, and that will be installed later on this fall. Okay. Mary or John?
Actually, it's
Veronica.
my turn. Hi, everybody. I wanted to let you know too, those of you who are watching as attendees, if you do have questions, you're welcome to put them in the Q&A box, which you can access from the ribbon at the bottom of your screen. And we'll try to get those answered through the course of today's webinar. In terms of administrative work, it's a lot the same and a little bit different. What I have found is that we simply don't see each other in person very much anymore. In fact, on Wednesday last week, there was a fire drill in the administrative building, in the ad building where my office is located. And as we all exited the building and stood in our assigned places around the Adelphian fountain, we're looking at each other like, oh, hey, there are still people working in this building. We just never see each other anymore. So it's a little bit sad, but I feel fortunate that we've had real success staying mostly COVID-free on campus. So that's been good news. Most of what we have to communicate, we put out via the Facebook page group for the art department. So I'd encourage you to check that out. If you have questions about it, submit them through there and I'll answer them, or give me a call at the office. Most of our events are technologically related now. So we're all becoming masters of Zoom and things that we never thought we'd have to do before. And I appreciate the flexibility of everyone, even those who are hesitant to join us via a screen, because at least that way we can see your face. So thanks for coming, everybody who's here. And I will let's see, it's Marvin's turn to chat a little bit.
Now, can you hear me now? Sorry, I got muted. Being retired, I don't have that much news from campus, so I guess I'll tell you a little about how it is to be retired. Every Wednesday morning for a number of years now, 5 of us former Goshen colleagues have met for coffee, and Abner Hershberger is one of those in the group. He helped get us organized. So he's very faithful in attending our coffees every Wednesday. And then we have a couple of other faculty members and Arlen Huntsberger in the group who worked with SST for many, many years. So that's been an enjoyable thing for me to do once a week, to, if not stay connected with campus, at least talk about how it used to be. I know many of you are participating or watching today, or listening and watching, are also thinking how it used to be. For us, for our family, the major thing has been that we sold our house. If you were a student in one of my classes, at some point you might have been at our house, because I tried to bring all the students to the house toward the end of the term each time, and talk about a little bit about art in everyday life or architecture or something like that. Made it into a class period. We felt very fortunate in selling it to 2 artists who have really benefited from the studio and so on. Maybe some of you know them. It was Trevor Dougherty and his wife Brianna. So they have a 2-year-old and seem to be enjoying the place very much. We just moved one door to the southeast of them, and we now live in a house that I designed about 25 years ago or so for Wilbur and Fanny Berkey, and we bought that house when it exchanged hands a couple times. And our next move will probably be to the retirement center at Greencroft. In the meantime, this house doesn't have a studio, but I do have a room I use as a gallery. So I've joined the Goshen Clay Artists Guild, to have a place to work, and I'm also developing in my volunteer life. I used to volunteer quite a bit at the Boys and Girls Club in Goshen, where I worked with first and second graders. My trademark lessons were to bring in something living and have them study it and then draw it. I had my own chickens, but also had other people bring in things, including the skunk lady brought in a skunk, and sometimes we had pigeons from one of the science teachers, and it was a lot of fun. Anyway, I've moved my volunteer time over to the retirement center now, and I've designed, and they've fixed up a nice clay studio. You can't work with clay unless you have kind of a dedicated space. They have it at the retirement center at Greencroft. They have quite a few of the men doing woodworking in a shop that they've had for quite a few years already. But right next door to that, we now have a clay studio also. I'll be starting classes soon to get people oriented so that they can come in and work on their own, and after they've started. I did get into the Clay Artists Guild after some waiting time. I thought I could just go join, but when I asked about joining, they said, well, we have a 6-person waiting list. So it took a little while to get in, but eventually the waiting list got down to my name, and I was accepted, and I am a member of the Clay Artists Guild in Goshen, which allows me to work there and also to have my work fired there with a very nice gas kiln. So I'm pleased about that. And when we get everything moving at Greencroft, I'll also have the ability to fire things there. Other than that, professionally, I've been doing a few workshops for art teachers. In March of 2019 was the last time I went overseas. I was invited to Bangkok, Thailand, to a convention of art teachers in international schools. Fortunately, they all knew the English language, and I did 4 workshops there with those folks, including teaching creativity, teaching drawing, teaching confidence instead of learned helplessness, and teaching critiquing by using the discovery method of learning. And then that was in March of 2019. In April of 2019, I gave a talk on teaching creativity to about 45 preschool teachers in the Washington, D.C. area. In November of that year, I delivered a keynote on teaching creativity to the Michigan art teachers at their state convention. So I'm slowing down on that. Haven't done much of that this year, but the one thing that happened to my artwork was at the Hahn Museum in Lafayette, Indiana, several years ago, came by and picked out over 40 works, including 3 that they have on exhibit in their sculpture garden. So if you ever get a chance to go to Lafayette, you might want to stop in at the Hahn Museum. H-A-A-N is the way they spell it, if you want to Google them. I think I've probably said enough. If any of you have questions, why go ahead and email me. You can go to my website and get my email address. My website is bartelart.com, and it has stuff that I started writing when I was still teaching and added to it in the meantime, as well as pictures of artwork that I've done. I have a Facebook page that has a few things on it that relate to what I've done, in case you're curious about that. So I'll turn it over to who's next. Is it John?
Yeah,
John.
it gets to be me.
Yes.
Marvin, while you were speaking, it occurred to me that one of the things that we've been doing and that I helped organize was a lunch for the art faculty once a month. And we have not been doing that this year because obvious reasons. We just are not doing that. But when things settle down, we can do that again.
I should say that our Wednesday coffee is on Zoom. And when the weather is nice, we go in Abner's driveway and spread out and wear masks. And then when we get far enough apart on the driveway, we take off our masks and drink our coffee. Anyway, I'll go hand it back to you, John.
Yeah, that's fine. So I've been retired also since 2011. Right away after I walked out the door with boxes, I was invited to teach a humanities course for nurses. And I think I did that for about 6 years. And that was an art and literature course. And I very much enjoyed it. And the course just grew and grew. And it became a very interesting experience for me. And on occasion, it was interesting for the students as well. And I ended up being invited to teach that to the Lifelong Learning Group, had about 50 people, and they just loved the information. It had to do with healthcare, death and dying. And so it was a very rich course, and students would come to me and hand me books and say, hey, you need to include this, or suggest a movie or that sort of thing. So it was a nice way to spin my way out of the office and continue teaching. Like Marvin, I've taught several drawing and painting workshops at Camp Friedenswald and for lifelong learning. That's been a rich experience. Weekend-long events like that. Also, I was invited to go speak at the South Bend Watercolor Society a couple of years ago. So I went there and did a demonstration and did a workshop lecture. And then they invited me to jury their show. And so those sorts of things continue to go on. I'm also involved, yet I'm still a member of College Art Association and the Christians in the Visual Arts Association. I don't always attend their meetings unless they're close by, but last February, right as COVID was beginning to hit, I enrolled and went to Chicago and really enjoyed it, and ended up running into about six different students. One of them, Ben Hartman, did a presentation and did a lovely job talking about Cuban architecture, and ran into Ann Berry, ran into a good number of other students. And so that was a rich experience. And frankly, it did us proud. They did very well. Beck and I have done some traveling, not enough, but some. And we've gone to Switzerland, been across lots of Canada. Every year have the good fortune to go out to the East Coast. I have a sister that lives in Boston, and she has a nice place on Martha's Vineyard, so we get to go play out there. And frankly, the last 5 or 6 years, Beck and I, my wife and I, have been painting on location, and that keeps us out of their hair and gives us a chance to be in beautiful locations and paint. Also interesting locations. I painted a picture standing on location. That's how I do my work, and call it direct observation, but standing in front of the oldest church in the country, or pretty close to that. It was started by Methodist, well, not Methodist, probably Episcopalian missionaries, 1629 from England. And so it was for the Aboriginals on Martha's Vineyard, and that structure has been rebuilt in 1822, but the graves are still there, and it gives you a very deep and profound sense of how that affected this country. So sometimes I find myself standing in front of history and historical objects and painting from them, and it moves me, and I think it probably moves right into my painting. I like to believe that anyway. So those have been rich experiences. During COVID, Beck and I have found our way, for example, to places close by. We can drive there, stand there and paint. So we've been to a waterfall in Wabash, Indiana, the Indiana Dunes, Lake Michigan, let me think, my backyard, and places like that. But we've been painting, and you can do that without a mask in most places. And people, by the way, find themselves interested. They'll walk over, and we keep our distance. But it's been the most fascinating time to do this, and it's resulted in some interesting works. I've had works in shows last fall at Heston College, where I used to teach before coming to Goshen. I had a show in their gallery, and got to run into, again, some old lovely friends, of course, and former faculty friends, but also students. And I've had the good fortune of getting several watercolors into national jury shows, Kansas and Texas, and so continue to make work. I've also been on committees, and I was on the building design committee at Assembly Mennonite Church, and that's been several years in the making, and that's a very fascinating process. But the end result has been interesting, I think, and the process was very interesting. And I'm on the Science and Religion Conference Board and on the Science and Religion Discussion Group, and that may sound funny for an art prof, but I did have at least a natural science minor before I started into this business of art. What else to say? Oh, of course, we enjoy being grandparents. I have 5 grandchildren, 3 of them out in Seattle whom we've not seen now for a year, and that's kind of frustrating. One of them lives in Mishawaka. We get to watch her play basketball. She's 15, and one lives in Atlanta, and we got to see her last summer. So we've done some traveling also to the Southeast, and Beck and I have done some camping in the Southwest. So it's been an interesting time. And otherwise, I mow the lawn and do the dishes and write checks, and sometimes I cook breakfast. So, anyway, it's one thing I'd like to say, and I don't know how many of you are out there, but to those of you who are, I really relish hearing from you. Former students who text sometimes or get on Facebook and say hello, or send a postcard or whatever, but keep in touch. It's enriching to me, and it's just great to know what you're doing. So that's all I've got to say, but take good care.
Okay, I think it's my turn to jump back in here. Some announcements, some things that are coming up for the department. We actually have been planning for this year's Eric Carnegie presentation, which is also in connection with an exhibit. This year, our featured artist is Greg Constantine, who is an emeriti professor from Andrews University up in Michigan. The exhibit is scheduled between January 10th to March 7th. At this point, it kind of remains to be seen how much our plans can sort of be fulfilled. We're still sort of waiting for some things to be figured out for the spring semester. Normally, we'd also have a presentation by Greg as part of all of that. At this point, there's not a schedule for that, and we're not exactly sure what form it would take, so stay tuned. We're hoping to be able to do something, but we're not sure what that will be exactly yet. We also have, the last number of years, we've also been doing a themed student art exhibit that usually goes up at the end of the fall term and continues during the first part of the spring term, that involves many of the students in our art classes. This year, the theme is lion and lamb, and we rotate themes for that. The exhibit itself actually is held in the basement of the Good Library, and in the space that was the art department gallery for many, many years. That we now share that with part of the Mennonite Historical Society, who also puts on exhibits in that space. So we're looking forward to being able to have that, to host that exhibit. We're still planning on doing that. The students in our fall classes will be participating. We may not be able to hold the kind of reception that we oftentimes do in the beginning of the spring semester, but again, at least the exhibit can take place. And then finally, we're very excited that this year we actually have 8 graduating seniors, which means we'll have 2 senior exhibits during March and April. The last couple of years, we've only had 1 exhibit. And so we're pleased that the numbers, again, are trending upwards that allow us to have that, that kind of larger number. And you saw some of the students' work that Meryl had showed you earlier on. Anyways, again, planning's going forward. We hope we can do as many of those things as we possibly can, but we'll see. So Meryl, I'll pass it back to you.
Okay. Well, that is sort of what we had prepared for presenting to you. What we wish we could do is get you in touch with each other, but you can also get in touch with us. If you go on the Facebook page, that's always an option for leaving your name and finding other alums. But do you have questions for us? There is a question and answer place where you could submit questions if you have anything that you're wondering about. And I think I would guess that it would make sense to close things down at this point, folks. I'd like to thank you all for coming and stay in touch, as John said. Okay.
Thank you.